Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is the
Night Parade Podcast.
the show where we shine light on the dark.
That's right.
Each episode, we present you a case on all things true crime and paranormal. As always, we'll be your hosts. My name is Glenn,
And my name is Jan.
and we work together here with the team at Night Parade Studio to bring you the show.
That's right.
Shout out to Disturbin for making such a great video on this case.
Great video.
Before that video, I actually hadn't heard of Andre Thomas.
No idea.
Yep, and I was so shocked, as you guys will be when you find out everything.
Yes, because once again, this is going to be another crazy episode in Night Parade Podcast. This is a very controversial case in the state of Texas because this case involves the murder of 2 children. It's truly a heinous act, but people argue if he really knew what he was doing. So, should insanity excuse you from something like this? Here's the case of Andre Thomas. Let's get started.
Let's do it. All right. So up on the screen is a picture of Andre Thomas. And in this picture, he actually looks like a really nice guy. He looks like a loving father. He's holding his baby, his baby boy.
That's right.
And people who knew him said that he was extremely intelligent and sweet. And no one expected things to turn out the way that they did. Starting from the beginning, Andre Thomas grew up in Sherman, Texas. His upbringing was very rough, to say the least. He had 5 brothers, and his single mother raised them all alone. And she herself struggled with childhood trauma, as well as depression and alcoholism. Both sides of Andre's family struggled with alcoholism, as well as serious mental health issues. His father drank heavily and was often arrested by police, and actually he came from a long line of alcoholics. So his grandma on his mom's side actually claimed to have dreams where she'd see visions of God. His mother claimed that she heard voices from God, and she would often receive help from the church. Despite this, their home almost never had running water or electricity. At a young age, he showed signs of being intelligently gifted. He was actually put forward for the Gifted and Talented Schools programs, so he was a pretty smart kid, very bright. And as a teenager, his father had bought an old rundown car, and so Andre was intrigued by this. He took the car apart piece by piece. Then he put it all back together in working order.
Damn.
Pretty impressive.
That's pretty hard to do,
Yeah. So he could have been like a really good mechanic, or at least.
Dude, that's way past mechanics. That's like engineering right there.
Yeah.
Like just by looking at it, you know how it works and you know where it should go.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, even the engine.
Yeah, I still get lost in YouTube instructions, bro. For him to do that by himself, it's pretty incredible, yeah.
It is. And he would even often draw his own car concepts.
Yeah.
And he claimed that he would build them by himself one day. He went to Sunday school and was very serious about his studies over there. He memorized large verses from the Bible. From the outside, it looked like Andre was going to have a very promising future. He had a lot going on and he was really smart. But things didn't turn out that way though. Deep down inside, something was happening inside of Andre. When he was just 10 years old, he started telling his friends at school that he heard voices in his head, something that he shared with his mom and grandma. He was also suffering from depression at a young age. At 10, he attempted to take his own life, then again at 13. So by the time he was 13, he already had attempted. His mother would often say this to him: "I wish I would have just aborted you instead," especially after his attempts at killing himself.
Wow.
That's awful. As a teenager, he started showing signs of antisocial behavior.
Yeah.
One day, he stole a car and then crashed it.
Oh my god.
If that isn't acting out, I don't know what it is. On other occasions, he'd cause damage to other cars. At 16 years old, he got his girlfriend pregnant. Her name was Laura Boren, and she was 8 months younger than him, and they'd been dating for a couple of years. This is her picture up on the screen, and Andre considered the Boren family to be his own, and he got very close with them. It was through them that he kind of got a sense of family that he didn't get from his own.
Yeah.
And so the Borens, they knew about his criminal history, but they didn't know about the voices that he was hearing in his head.
Oh.
And so they allowed Andre to stay with them for a while. On August 30th, 1999, Andre Jr. was born. Then on March 17th, 2001, Andre and Laura get married. Soon, They get their own place together. It goes well for a while, but not long after that, Laura ends the relationship and moves back in with her parents. So there must have been
something that happened, because she wouldn't just go back to her parents if everything was going great, obviously.
Yeah, it seemed like things were going great up until they moved in together.
Right.
And you know, when you move in together with someone, that's when you really know like what
kind of person they are inside the house, around the house,
their habits.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And so Laura, she decides to take Andre Jr. with her. The reason was because of Andre's mental health. It was beginning to spiral. He started drinking very heavily and started using very heavy substances as well.
Not good.
Not good, especially when you have deteriorating mental health already.
Yeah, it just piles on, it adds up to it, and just makes everything worse.
Absolutely. Soon, Andre found himself broke and alone, and he started getting in trouble with the law, spending some nights in jail for petty crimes. So yeah, things were really spiraling.
Yeah.
However, one day, he beat a man whom he thought was sleeping with Laura. Here on the screen is his mugshot. On another occasion, he came running into a church. He looked for the nearest bucket of holy water and dunked his head into it.
Oh my god.
He believed that he was possessed by demons, and he was arrested again after this.
Right. I mean, obviously,
but like, ooh, I mean, he should have at least been sent somewhere after that. I don't know.
Maybe not prison.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually what they do to people who does some kind of like stuff like that, they usually get checked up in a psychiatric facility first for 72 hours.
Yeah.
It's called a 5150.
Oh, I see.
And basically it's a legal 3-day hold on a person who, if the police, believes that they could be like harm to others or harm to themselves, it's a kind of like a mandatory thing to like put them in a psychiatric facility.
Oh, yeah.
And if depending on their situation, let's say it's worse than what it looks like, sometimes they extend that 5150 to a 5250, which is a 14-day hold.
Oh.
So it goes from 3 days to 14 days. But that doesn't mean that they have to stay there for 14 days. That just means that they have 14 days in that hospital to get better.
I see.
Whether they get better or not, they're gonna have to get released.
Does that only happen if they like harm somebody or like if they cause damage?
It's somewhat, yeah, but usually it's mostly like looking for a sign whether they're mentally ill or not. Like, I could just call 5150 on you for no reason. Some people do that, which is unfortunate because some people just needs to be heard. They don't need to be put in a hospital and put through that trauma that they need to be put through. But yeah, I could basically like, oh hey, I got this friend Glenn, he's kind of acting kind of weird, he's been talking about this and that.
But okay, so at that point though, they're supposed to investigate, right? And they're supposed to
basically
make sure that I am like mentally healthy or
before they take you anywhere else. Right. But then sometimes they're acting so hysterical that they do look like what they're being described as, but in reality it's just really hysterical, taking over you, being like, because I mean some people just want to be heard.
So I mean, like in this case though, that should have happened.
Exactly.
So I think that at least that
if I seen that in church and he's screaming like, there's a demon that's possessing me and all that, and he dunks his head in the holy water, the bucket of holy water, I would definitely be like, okay, something is wrong here, and call the police. Do that.
It probably has to do with him being on substances. They'll probably automatically just like blame it on that.
Yeah.
But there's obviously mental health issues going on,
right
too.
Very obvious. I mean, technically if you drink like alcohol, that's kind of like putting yourself in a different like mental state, right? Because I mean, you're all tipsy, you don't know what the hell you're doing half of the time. So yeah, it just worsen it. And then you got the heavy substances that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's just not a good combination.
No.
And so I mean, because of that, the police probably blamed it on that, and they didn't give any sort of notice to his mental condition.
Yeah. And usually, yeah, I mean, if they put him in a hospital first, they get to the person who was like at fault. They're going to be released to the police. They're not going to be released to the family members.
Mhm.
That's what we do, at least, or we did back then.
yeah.
We released them to the police, and then
Nah.
they take it from there to the jail.
Okay.
And when they're finally could be medicated.
So from
like
there,
that.
it's completely up to them, though.
Exactly, yeah.
I see. I see.
So in 2003, Andre was 19 years old. He moved in with his brother. Brian also suffered from mental health issues, and he'd just been released from a facility, a psychiatric facility. They would constantly argue over small things, which is not good, especially if both of you have mental health issues.
Mhm.
It kind of like negatives feeds negative, and it just adds on and adds on. That's what happens in like facilities. That's why we tend to like separate most of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it really is like the case, because sometimes like whatever the voice in their head is saying is like negative towards others, like, oh, make him like annoyed or make him cry or something, and the next thing you know, he's like talking to him about like different stuff and whatnot. We're not allowed to talk about like religion
Mm-hmm.
because it stirs up some kind of like pot in their head.
I see.
We're not allowed to talk about like politics,
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy theories.
Oh.
All of those kind of stuff is not allowed to be talked about around the patients, just because of the thoughts. But yeah, like I said, one night Brian claimed that Andre's music was summoning evil spirits, and here you go, the two mental health issues is like, you know, showing right here.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian stepping into Andre's room, and he knocked Andre to the ground, which is not good. That's assault. Then he savagely beat him, which is even crazier than just knocking him on the floor.
Yep.
In response, Andre ran into the kitchen. There, he grabbed an 8-inch knife, and he took that knife and stabbed his brother square in the back. Like, what? Like, I would fight with my brother. It never gets to this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oof.
Like, there's no savagely beating anyone. There's no stabbing anyone. It's just a brotherly fight where someone probably ends up crying at the end. But, you know, it it doesn't get to this point.
Where stabbing each other.
Yeah, this is definitely a sign of mental health issue.
Yeah.
Right. Brian, on the other hand, survived the attack from Andre, his self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
But Andre was arrested and ended up spending 3 months in jail. During this time, authorities had the opportunity to identify Andre's mental health issues. However, this never happened, and he was never given any treatment, which is bad. After his time was served, they just released him, which again is really bad, because you could have, you know, taken notice and, you know, within his like mental health illness.
Exactly.
Right? And second, you could have given him medication. Like I said earlier, what we would do to those type of people is that they would be sent to psychiatric facilities for at least 72 hours.
Yeah.
To get them, like, you know, settled down.
Right.
And then we would release them to the police.
There were so many red flags that they missed.
Yeah, exactly. And usually they would continue the medication that we give them from the facility in the police department. They would have those meds in the police station or whatever, like in jail.
Because
so
they
that
need
they
it.
could, yeah, exactly. So they keep on giving it to them.
The treatment.
But bringing this back to Laura, Andre also began to show obsessive behavior over Laura. Despite the relationship ending some time ago, Laura decided to keep his visits with his child to a minimum. Later in 2003, Laura met a new man named Brian Hughes. She really liked this guy, and they started getting close to one another. Soon they got into a relationship, and they even moved in together. Now, before long, they even had a child together, a daughter named Leia. Andre was frustrated by this. Despite this, Andre was able to land a job, although he was fired the next year. Soon, he began telling his friends that he had thoughts of taking his own life. He also started to tape his own mouth shut because he couldn't stand the sound of his own voice anymore. This is very sad, bro. Like, I know people who doesn't like their voice when they hear it like in a video.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's your voice. Like, it's okay, man. Like,
It's
you
the only
can't-
one you got.
yeah, you know what I mean.
You gotta learn to like it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Wow. That's very sad. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
sad. Now, because of this, his friends decided to take initiative. They took him to a mental health facility, which is, props to your friends. So I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
He was admitted and finally began treatment. While there, he said life was just too much. He said he wished to take his own life. So the staff issued him an emergency order, which is usually the 5250 that I'm talking about.
Right.
And this meant that he had to check into a nearby hospital for further treatment. And if he didn't, then the police would arrest him. So Andre promised that he would go straight to the mental hospital after this. However, when he left the mental health facility, he went straight home and the police did nothing. Again, it's, just letting this guy do whatever he wants in this kind of state, right?
Not
It's
good.
Yeah, not healthy. So he stayed home and never continued any treatment that he was given. He also refused to let go of Laura, continuing the obsessive behavior towards Laura. He had the habit of surprising Laura at her own home when Bryant wasn't there. And when he was there, he would try to convince Laura to get back together with him, despite the fact that she has another kid with Bryant, all that kind of stuff.
Oh man.
And even though he was doing all this to Laura, Andre did have a girlfriend at the time. So it's even more wrong, right? And her name was Carmen Hayes. He lived with Carmen in a trailer at the same time along with his mom. So despite this whole situation,
He was still going out.
yes. He was going after Laura obsessively.
Oh, gosh.
Oh man, this is just wow.
It's a big mess.
Yeah, it's sad, and at the same time, it's kind of like, dude, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, you can tell it's like going downhill.
Yeah,
It's been going downhill, but now
Yeah.
it's like straight down.
Yeah. Sure. Then one night, Andre began having his depressive episodes. March 25th, 2004, Andre was all alone in his home, and he went into his kitchen and grabbed a knife. He then drove the knife straight into his own chest, and he fell asleep.
Whoa.
That's intense, dude. I can't imagine. Like, how did he just fall asleep after doing that?
Right.
Right? His mom found him the next morning, and she was shocked and drove him to the hospital. Andre survived the wound. The hospital notes stated, Andre was psychotic. He was rambling on and on, talking about the secrets to life contained within the US $1 bill. You can't think that this guy is sane.
Yeah. I can see why you shouldn't talk about
Conspiracy
Conspiracy
theories,
theories,
right?
yeah.
You see? Make sure if you see someone that's struggling with their mental health, you help them right away. Try to be there as much as you can, and try to just listen. Don't talk. Just listen. That's all they want. So bringing this back to Andre, now that he was in the hospital and had been through interviews and whatnot, they stated that Andre believed that he was living in a simulation, and nothing that he did mattered at all to anyone, to him, or whatever, to the world. The hospital deemed him to be a danger to himself and others. They stated that he was psychotic, like I said. He needed to stay in a mental health facility until he was good enough to be discharged again. However, before they could properly process him, Andre fled from the hospital, probably because of the voices inside of his head told him so.
Probably.
So the staff notified the police, but again, they did nothing. So yeah, it's like you said, it's just
Wow.
downhill from there.
They did nothing.
No.
So, I mean, that really sucks because it looked like Andre was actually starting to make some progress. His friends, they brought him to the hospital. They were actually trying to get him some help.
Yep.
And he was getting treatment.
Yep.
So, I mean, then he just fled. And nobody went after him. What happened? What happened there? I wish that the police did something about this because something horrible happened just 2 days later. So March 27, 2004. That morning, Andre put on some overalls, and these overalls had lots of pockets in them. He stepped into his kitchen and he grabbed 3 knives and placed them into his pockets. He started walking to the house where Bryant and Laura lived in, and on his way there, he even saw Bryant driving to work, and they waved at each other. Then they went on their merry way. Once he got into their home, Andre broke into their house and he set off the security alarm. After hearing this, Laura, she came running down the stairs to see what was happening. As Laura approached Andre, he grabbed one of the knives from his pockets and he thrusted it into her heart. Then Laura fell to the ground and rapidly bled out. Before long, she passed away. Once she was dead, Andre cut through her chest with the knife that was already in her, and he used it to cut a chunk of her lung. He believed it was her heart, and he placed that piece into his pocket and stood back up. Then he grabbed another knife from his pocket and started walking towards the children's bedroom. He walked into the room and saw his son, who had been awakened from all the commotion. He then got on top of his own son and stabbed him in the chest. He carved into his chest, slicing out his heart. He placed the heart along with the second knife in a different pocket, and he was careful not to cross-contaminate the blood. Oh my gosh. He noticed Laura and Bryant's daughter also, who was hiding under the bed. He pulled the child from her bed and got on top of her as well. Leah suffered the same fate as the others. He stabbed her in the chest and removed her heart. He placed it along with the third knife in a different pocket, again careful not to cross-contaminate the blood. And Laura was 20 years old when she was murdered. Andre Jr. was 4 years old, and Leah was only 13 months. After killing all 3 of them, Andre folded up a $1 bill, and he folded it so the eye was showing. And then he stabbed himself twice in the chest and laid down next to Laura. He expected to die, of course. A few moments later, he got up, and to his surprise, his wounds didn't kill him. So, he decided to run from the scene. He kept the 2 children's hearts and the partial lung in his pockets, and he ran towards his trailer. On the way there, he heard sirens and saw flashing lights going towards Laura's home. Then he attempted to call Laura on his phone, but he couldn't find her number, so instead he called her parents. And he left a really eerie voicemail. We won't play it for you guys, but he says something bad is happening to me, and it keeps on happening. I don't know what is going on, but I need help. When he got back to his trailer, he saw his girlfriend Carmen, and he was covered in blood. She was terrified.
Obviously.
Yeah. He explained things to her, saying that the police were coming and that he had just killed his ex-wife, his son, and her other child. He then lifted his shirt to expose the self-inflicted wound, and he showed Carmen how deep it was by inserting a knife from the kitchen into it. He said, "I should be dead." Carmen said he needed to turn himself in to the police, and so Andre did. He went straight to the police station and explained everything. Officers were already at the crime scene, and they found 3 victims lying on their backs with cavities in their chests and missing organs. Andre was treated for the self-inflicted wounds in his chest. After being released, he was then arrested. They asked him why he killed Leah, Andre Jr., and Laura. He responded by saying that God told him to kill all of them. He believed that Laura was Jezebel, the wife of the devil, and his own son was the Antichrist. He believed that Leah was another evil demonic spirit, and he asked if he'd be forgiven for what he did. Throughout the interview, he wouldn't let up with the idea that they were all demons, and he insisted that he did nothing wrong. He said that he shouldn't be punished. He stated that he had freed their hearts from evil.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. 5 days after the murders, Andre was sitting alone in his cell, and he was reading a Bible. He started reading verse Matthew 9:29. After reading this verse, he dug into his right eye with his fingers and grabbed his own eyeball and gouged it out, which is insane. And part of that verse says that if thy right eye offends thee, pluck it out. So he took that like literally. And you could see right here in the screen, if you guys are watching on YouTube, a picture of Andre without his right eye.
Wow.
Yeah, after this, the court declared that Andre was not fit to stand trial. They sent him to a maximum security psychiatric facility. He was given strong antipsychotic medications. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And after 5 weeks that passed, 2 doctors claimed that Andre had exaggerated his symptoms, and they changed his diagnosis to substance-induced psychosis. And they deemed him competent to stand trial. His trial started in 2005, as you can see in this picture. His defense team pled innocent due to being clinically insane, which I mean shows there's a lot of evidence that points towards that, right? But despite their efforts, the jury found Andre guilty and he was sentenced to death on December 8th, 2008. Andre was sitting alone in his cell, seemingly for no reason. He dug his fingers into his other good eye and he gouged it out again, and he placed it into his mouth and then he ate it.
What drove him to do this?
I don't, for surely not sane.
Yeah. You can say that about anything that he did in this story.
Yes. But ever since then, Andre was stayed at the Winscott High Security Psychiatric Facility, and there he awaits his execution. There's no sane person that I know who would do that.
Yeah.
By himself,
Seriously.
eating his own eye. That's insane. And they had like the nerve to like, you know, take that, what's that called, diagnosis out from him, like,
Yeah.
you know, take and change it.
Change it to substance-induced psychosis.
Right. I mean, he might have been using those substances, yes, but at the same time,
It doesn't take away the insanity.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
It shouldn't, at least, you know? In fact, it should add on to it.
yeah. Well, Cher Boren, Laura's mother, says that her Cher Boren, Laura's mother, says that she still can't believe that her daughter is gone. To those who knew Andre, said that he could have been so brilliant, and if only he had been treated sooner, maybe the whole thing would have been different. Which I partially agree with, you know? Mental health issue is a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, it has to be treated.
Yeah.
And yeah, in his case, I think you know, he could have been really brilliant too.
Absolutely.
There's just a lot of red flags that were missed, and
Mm-hmm.
minor mistakes that led to this horrific accident or tragedy. I wouldn't even call it an accident. It's a tragedy.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. If he had the right nurturing environment
Yeah.
when he was younger.
Yeah.
You know, often he was left without electricity and water. So, and that just goes along with all the abuse.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. Yeah.
So today, Andre Thomas is scheduled to be executed on April 5th, 2023, which is my birthday.
That sucks, dude. Your birthday sucks.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wow, what a coincidence. So, under the right set of circumstances, he could have been a really great guy.
For sure.
Unfortunately, he was never properly treated, and because of this, 3 people lost their lives.
Yeah. And I mean 4 if you're counting his.
That's true. There are people who argue for Andre, stating that he is a victim in his own right, saying he doesn't deserve the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, does Andre deserve to be put to death, though? That's the hard question.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they diagnosed him, and then they took the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and then gave him another diagnosis to for him to be put on trial.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, because I mean, well, actually, no, I don't think he should be put to death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, clearly he's mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've been talking about this episode, is that the police could have helped him.
Mm-hmm.
They could have helped him by first, sending him to the psychiatric facility and all that kind of stuff. And then when he did flee the hospital,
They didn't do anything.
They didn't do anything, instead of just, going after him so that he could be put in the facility once again.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, he could be released to the police, where they could monitor him 24/7 and give him the medication that he needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still have a life somewhat. Yeah.
I mean, I would say that he probably doesn't deserve death.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about it as justice for the victims, there was never really any justice given to them, any proper justice.
Right, for sure.
But as for him, he is a victim in his own right, and he should have received help a lot sooner. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. To me, he doesn't deserve it. But what really quality of life does he have at this point?
Right. But I mean,
maybe
that's not for me to say, right? Because I know people that are mentally ill who gets up from this kind of fight, right? I'm not saying that they killed anybody, but I'm saying that they win the fight against their mental health. So can we say that Andre was long gone, quote unquote? No, I can't say that, because like you said, he didn't get any help any sooner than he could have, or he should have. And can we say that he doesn't have any more life because of the fact that he's hearing voices, that the demons are telling him to kill him? No, because I worked in that in that area, and I've seen people get better, right?
Okay.
And yeah, there are those people who really gets up and fight their demons, literally fight their demons on a daily basis. So with that being said, Andre definitely could have gotten better with the help of some peers, maybe friends, or even just the hospital staff, just on a regular basis, until he gets back on his own feet, and gets to think for himself again, along with the medication that he's given. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think he deserved the death penalty, because he really could have been a lot better. This guy freaking took apart cars, or a car, and put it back together. 90% of men can't even do any of that. I'm telling you, at least 90%. Unless you're a mechanic, you can't do that. Go ahead. Go to your garages right now. Do what he did. I'm telling you, you can't do it. It's hard. It's hard to do that. This dude was a genius.
Yeah.
It's not even just puzzles anymore. Like I said, that's damn near like engineering, dude. Like,
exactly. There's so much potential
that's a lot
that went to waste here.
Yeah. But was there any justice for the 3 victims?
I don't think so. I think that there's no way for them to get justice at this point.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, it's just to remember them. That's the only really way we can honor their memory, is just to honor them.
Right. I don't think they're out. I agree with you. I don't think there will ever be justice for the 3, because of the fact that Andre Thomas is mentally ill. And if I know anything, some of those people, when they're really in that episode, they can't think for themselves. They don't even remember what happened. Any of that. So there's a chance that he doesn't even feel like guilt because that wasn't him who did it, quote unquote. That wasn't him. But at the same time, it's Andre is already on death penalty and is scheduled to be executed on the 5th of April this year. And if we're looking at justice, in the scope of, I guess, like an eye for an eye, there was a lot of lives on the other hand compared to this one. You know what I mean? There was 2 children, right?
Yeah, two children
who didn't get to live anything.
Yeah, so young.
So yeah, I don't think there will ever be justice for the 3.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Okay. Our condolences to anyone who knew him. I mean, I don't think he deserved it. I don't think he deserves what he's getting. But
yeah, our condolences to the Bourne family and the family of Andre Thomas. It's very unfortunate that this happened.
Yeah. Heck yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. This was the controversial case of Andre Thomas. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Do you think he deserves death? Do you think that things could have been different? What do you think could have been done to prevent all this?
Yes, and if you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave that like, subscribe, and click that notification bell button so that you know when we're uploading these videos. Again, we are very sorry for not being able to upload videos for the past 3 weeks. We have been sick, both of us.
Yep.
First week is me, and then the second 2 weeks is COVID with Glenn.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been tough, but we are ready.
Heck yeah.
And back to deliver these type of stories with you guys or to you guys. So make sure to hit that notification bell button.
Yep.
And with that being said, once again, my name is Jan.
My name is Glenn, and welcome to the Night Parade.